dangerous for our existence. And as we utilize oxygen within the battery or furnace of the cell to create energy and life itself, occasionally there's a charged oxygen molecule that's created. A free radical is an oxygen molecule that has at least one unpaired electron in its outer orbit, which gives it an electrical charge, which gives it very rapid movement. And if it is not readily neutralized by an antioxidant, which has that ability to make that free radical harmless, it can go on to cause more volatile free radicals. It can damage the cell wall, the vessel wall, proteins, fats, and yes, even the DNA nucleus of the cell. This is what's important. However, you must realize the number of free radicals that you and I produce each and every day is not steady. There are many things that increase the production of free radicals within our body. Cigarette smoke is the most common one, even secondary smoke. But the pollutants in our air, food, and water increase the number of free radicals you and I produce. The sunlight, radiation, medications that I prescribe all create increased free radicals, especially the real potent ones like the chemotherapeutic drugs. But we also know that if you have excessive stress in your life, if you have mild to moderate stress, the number of free radicals you produce goes up just a little bit. But if you are under a lot of stress or chronic stress, the number of free radicals goes shooting up off the wall. But what you have to realize is this generation has to deal with more free radicals than any generation that has walked the face of the earth. But why is this important? It's important because this small free radical damage has been known and shown in the medical literature to be the root cause, the underlying cause of over 70 chronic degenerative diseases. Those diseases you and I would love to avoid, if at all possible. Heart disease, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, macular degeneration, lupus. All of these diseases have actually been shown the root cause is this free radical damage. Now, the best illustration I can give you is if you're sitting home and you're watching a home fire burn, a wood fireplace. I can heat my whole house with a wood fireplace we have in our basement. And if you're watching that wood fireplace burn, normally it burns just fine, 90–95% of the time. But occasionally there's a spark and out comes a hot cinder and burns a little hole in your carpet. Now that's not a big deal, but month after month, year after year, that carpet it becomes very ratty and torn. Well, think about the fireplace as the furnace of your cell. And that spark, or that cinder that comes out as a free radical, and the carpet's your body. It's whatever part of your body wears out first is the type of disease you could possibly develop. If it's the brain, you could develop Alzheimer's, dementia, or Parkinson's. If it's the eye, you can develop a cataract or macular degeneration. If it's your arteries, you could have a heart attack or a stroke. If it's the joint, you could have arthritis. If it's the muscle, you could have lupus. These are the things that you start to understand. And this is something that we all look at, but we're never taught this in medical school. This is not something I learned in medical school. It's something I had to learn and research afterwards. And you'll start to understand as we go through this. But basically, we are rusting inside. That's all it is. So the same process that turns a cut apple brown or rust metal is rusting you and I inside. This is oxidative stress. This is the oxidation process because we live in an environment of oxygen, and this is what's going on. So many patients come into me. They look like the picture on the right here. They're all rusted out. They're at the end stage of a certain disease. And what we find is it's too late many times. But then there are people who have learned to become proactive in protecting their health. They're exercising, they're eating a healthy diet, they're taking nutritional supplements, and they have a chance to come in and look good. I mean, this is the thing that we're trying to do. But this generation, the that's walking the face of the earth, because of the pollutants in our air, food, and water, our stressful lifestyles, and over-medicated society, we have to deal with more free radicals than any generation that's ever been here before. I like Dr. Wentz's quote. He says, "We are living too short and dying too long." You know, that's what I see as a physician. You know, our age, that we're dying gets older and older and older. However, many people are developing these diseases, these chronic degenerative diseases, earlier and earlier and earlier in life. Look at Michael J. Fox. 33 years old, and he develops Parkinson's disease. You look at Muhammad Ali and all this, but you look at people and what they have to suffer with. But Dr. Wentz really has hit the nail on the head that we need to call out a whole generation of people who want to become proactive in protecting their health. And what we are to offer them is that truth and that trust that people say, we know if you're going to spend your time, your money and effort trying to protect your health, and that's what I feel my goal is to share with you, we want to be doing something that's clinically effective. Because you are not defenseless against this process. You see, antioxidants have the ability to give that free radical its electron that it's desired and render it harmless. It's much like putting glass doors or the fine wire mesh in front of your fireplace. Yes, the sparks are still going to fly, but your carpet, your body is protected. Balance is the key. You want to have enough antioxidants on board to handle the number of free radicals you produce. That's the key. And if you do, then you do not have oxidative stress. This is what we are learning, and that's what the medical literature teaches us. So where do you get these antioxidants? Where do we get them? Well, our body actually makes a certain amount of antioxidants from the food we consume. But also, there's a great source of antioxidants in our food, especially the fruits and vegetables. That's why if you learn one thing today, if you walked out of here and all you did was eat 8 to 10 servings of fruits and vegetables each and every day, you would decrease your risk of heart attack, of stroke, of cancer, of Alzheimer's dementia, of Parkinson's by 2 to 3-fold just by doing that. However, we have to understand, we now have nutritional supplementation where we can get these antioxidants that we should be getting from our foods, but at levels you cannot obtain from your food. And I call these optimal or advanced levels. So, the medical evidence that demands a verdict, should you and I be taking nutritional supplements? That's what I had to do, because for 23 years of my medical practice, as I shared this morning, I tried to do everything I could to get my patients off supplements. Because I was taught you can get everything you need from your food. You don't need supplements. And I will explain why we are taught that. But here's what I've learned in studying the medical literature. When you look at these chronic degenerative diseases, what I find is that the best defense of getting any of these diseases is actually your own body's natural defense systems. Your natural immune system, your natural repair system, and your natural antioxidant defense system. This is what we are. This is what we need. So, we can't trade in our body. There are many people, I come into my office, who are 85, 90 years old, and they're very active. They're very vibrant. They're full of life. Because, and it's not in their genetic, it's just that they took care of themselves. They didn't wait to get sick and run into the doctor and say, "Oh, doctor, save me." They took it here because most of what we talk about is a choice. I shared with you this morning about the diabetes obesity epidemic. Do you realize that becoming diabetic is really a choice? We feel through the clinical trials we've done that over 90% of diabetes can and should be avoided. But it does take patient motivation. This is what's important. Dr. Peter Lanshin is a biochemist, cardiologist out of Tyler, Texas. He's done most of the studies on coenzyme Q10. And when I wrote my first book, Bionutrition, he got his hands on it, called me, and he just called me in my office one day and he says, "Ray, welcome to the fight." because this is what we are, trying to get this message out. Because he said, modern medicine is based on this attack strategy. And we feel that comes from our era of antibiotics. Where someone come in with a strep throat, we could give them penicillin and man, we could knock it out within 7 to 10 days. We've taken that attack strategy and tried to apply it to chronic degenerative diseases. See, we're not dying anymore as much from infectious disease. We're dying from these chronic degenerative diseases, and we want to attack chronic disease with all of these drugs. Look at the power and the economic power of the pharmaceutical industry. That's where we get most of our information. That, I had not gone to a meeting in my life as a physician that was not sponsored by a pharmaceutical company or several companies. They control it. I tell you, in my office, I could see as many pharmaceutical reps as I can see patients if I wanted to. They would just line up and try to sell me their goods. But this is a thing, we have forgotten about the host or the body. We just think we can just write a prescription and all that and everything's going to be fine. You see, traditional medicine, like I shared this morning, is disease-oriented and drug-oriented. This is where we are. And in fact, think about this. What we call preventive medicine, we're going through Obamacare, we're talking about Canadian medicine. I tell my friends in the United States, Canadians love their medicine. They like their medical care until they get sick. Then they're not too happy. I get calls from you all the time and talking. But if you're not sick, it's fine. But what we call everything is going to preventive medicine, remember, because that is where we're going to save money. But look at what is preventive medicine. I practiced for 35 years, and when I do a complete physical, and I do a wellness physical, what am I doing? I am actually looking for early signs of disease. I'm looking for that silent high blood pressure. Or I'm looking for maybe a sign of heart disease. I do blood work to look for the cholesterol or diabetes that you're not aware of. If I do a pap smear or PSA or mammogram, I'm looking for early cancer. What am I doing? I'm really just looking for early disease so that I can spend more money on the drugs and all that. That's traditional medicine. But I now believe I'm a true healthcare provider, because what I'm going to share with you is you're going to be equipping your body to fight off disease. This is key to optimize that immune system, optimize that antioxidant defense system, and believe we do have a neat repair system. This is what I've learned practicing nutritional medicine over the past 15 years. My patients today come in and they say, I'm not as concerned anymore about the years of my life as I am the quality of life in those years. You know, I had one of the people that was a mentor to me came up after I read my book, or he read my book, and he says, Ray, I want to live till I die. You know, I thought, now that's a real profound statement coming from someone. That's really true. What good does it do to live to a ripe old age of 93 like President Ronald Reagan did, and he hadn't recognized his family or his members for the last 10 years because he had Alzheimer's dementia? You know, you look at suffering and what we're doing. Now, you can't prevent everything. Disease comes. But you know what? There's a lot you can do. It's a choice. And so this is why practicing nutritional medicine, I'm looking at quality of life. You know, there are going to be many people out here who can say, gee, I'm going to take nutritionals. They come up to me, why did I get sick? You know, it's like I'm not going to die if I take supplements. I'll guarantee everybody in here taking USANA is going to end up dying. Sometime, unless you... The thing is, but it's the quality of life. This is what it is. And so I'm going to talk to you just about how to look at some of the disease and then give you a concept. Not to try to, you know, make it confusing, but actually to make it simple. You see, when you start to understand nutritional medicine, you start to look at disease differently than what we do in traditional medicine. For example, heart disease. We've been taught years and years and years that heart disease is the result of too much cholesterol floating around in your bloodstream, clogging up your arteries, and that's what it is. But do you know that over half of the people who have a heart attack have normal cholesterol levels? So that shoots that theory, right? And, you know, there's something else. I can show you study after study after study that says heart disease is the result of low-grade inflammation in your arteries. It is not a disease of too much cholesterol. So it's an inflammatory disease. Well, when I read that and I saw that in the New England Journal of Medicine, I said, well, what causes the inflammation? I mean, wouldn't you think rather than taking a stack of drug that's supposed to help or all this is what it is. We talked about insulin resistance this morning. That's one of the greatest causes of inflammation. Diabetes, that's insulin resistance leads to diabetes, and it also causes high blood pressure in the majority of cases of high blood pressure. Cigarette smoke is a great cause of inflammation in your arteries. But then we're left with a couple, oxidized LDL cholesterol and homocysteine. So let's just talk a minute about homocysteine. How many here know their cholesterol level? Raise your hands. Know what your cholesterol has. Your doctor check your cholesterol level.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's more than that. How many here know what their homocysteine level is? How many times their doctor got in and run a homocysteine?
Never.
Well, homocysteine was a product that is a byproduct of protein metabolism. It's a particular protein that breaks down into homocysteine and onto a more benign product. Well, what happened is Dr. Kilmer McCulley, he was a pathologist at Harvard University, was doing some autopsies and reviewing them on two young boys. One happened to be 7 and one happened to be 4, and they both died of heart attacks. And everybody go, well, what? Well, they had a genetic defect called homocystinuria. And what that is they didn't have the enzymes to break that down. And so their homocysteine levels are very, very high. None of these kids ever see their teenage years. They all die of heart attacks sooner than that. But Dr. McCulley, this led him to think, well, maybe if you have just a slightly elevated or modestly elevated homocysteine level throughout your lifetime, it could be a risk factor for heart disease. Well, he was initially met with a lot of enthusiasm back in the 70s and all that. Then he turned around and they and what they found was that his research dried up. He was fired from Harvard, and he went out because the cholesterol research came in. Well, what they found, they later in the 1980s, brought his research back and found he was right. That over 15% of every heart attack and stroke is due just to the elevated homocysteine levels. But it's no drugs that can cure this. It's a vitamin B deficiency, so folic acid, vitamin B12, B6, these are the things. In fact, when I spoke in Chicago, I just flew Chicago to get up here, I did a meeting there years ago, and I remember reading on homocysteine back then, and I was looking at the levels done in the studies that you needed of these B vitamins to significantly lower your homocysteine about 70% of the time going down to normal. And then I looked at my Nissan Essentials, and that's what was in there. I ran up to Dr. Wentz. He says, Dr. Wentz, look at this. I see this study where, this is the amount you need, and that's what you got in your Nissan. He says, I know, Ray, that's why we put it in there. Anyway, then we talk about oxidized LDL. Well, what we find is LDL, we hear is the bad cholesterol, and HDL is the good cholesterol. But there's research, New England Journal of Medicine, Dr. Daniel Steinberg wrote his thing, he says, LDL cholesterol is not bad, the body needs it. It's only bad once it becomes modified or oxidized by these excessive free radicals. Therefore, if you take good antioxidants and protect that LDL particle from becoming oxidized, then LDL is not bad. And that's what the literature shows. Dr. Marco Diaz looked back at 40 of these different studies later in about 2000, reported again in the New England Journal of Medicine, that if you have good antioxidants on board, you significantly decrease your risk of heart disease. So antioxidants have the ability to protect that LDL cholesterol. So when you combine a healthy diet, modest exercise, you control insulin resistance, all of these things, your blood pressure, your weight, and you take nutritional supplementation, you pretty much eliminate all of the causes of inflammation. Well, then when you look at cancer, cancer takes decades to develop. This is key. But it's due when we see that they've done studies where you look at the DNA nucleus, and when it is exposed to excessive free radicals, you can see what part of the spiral staircase is damaged. And this will lead to mutation as that cell replicates and the changes occur. And we can see this over a long time. And we see that higher levels of antioxidants decrease your risk of developing any kind of cancer. And so even antioxidants can actually reverse some of the damage. If you look up here, the process of cancer, carcinogenesis, the normal cell gets damaged by these excess and free radicals. When that cell replicates, it goes and it becomes a mutated cell. And then it's damaged more, and it's damaged more, all the way down here to what we call a precancerous or a pre-malignant lesion. The next stage is cancer itself. And so what happens is that we have done studies looking at areas where there's pre-malignant lesions, and what happens is that you take antioxidants in that stage. We've looked at cervical dysplasia, we've looked at leukoplakia in the mouth, and over 90% or 60 to 70% of the time, those cells go all the way back to normal. So there is a regression and repair if you have adequate antioxidants on board. So not only can it protect the initial damage, but there's actually a chance to repair damage that's been done. This is called chemoprevention. So taking nutritional supplements all of your life allows you the best chance to try to boost your immune system and your antioxidant defense system. Now, Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's disease, the reason this is a major problem is the fact that 80% of the brain cells are already destroyed the day we diagnose someone with Alzheimer's, dementia, or Parkinson's. It's too late for most of us. That's why prevention is so important. And there are studies, the people with the higher levels of antioxidants on board have the least risk of developing these diseases. I talked about my wife's fibromyalgia chronic fatigue. There are studies now that show that the root cause of this is also oxidative stress. The majority of patients with fibromyalgia chronic fatigue that follow my recommendations for at least 6 months, and this is key. I don't even start anybody on my program or my recommendations unless they commit to me to go 6 months. It was a mistake I made earlier. It's 1 month is not enough. It just takes that long to replenish any nutritional deficiencies that you're dealing with, plus, bringing everything up to optimal levels. And so that's where we are. And then congestive heart failure, that's cardiomyopathy. We know now that if people take with cellular nutrition high levels of coenzyme Q10, which is the energy source of the heart muscle, in 85% of the cases, these patients show significant clinical improvement. And so it's this kind of research out there from the nutritional medicine side that we see. But traditional approach to nutritional medicine for the last half century is focused on replenishing a nutritional deficiency. That's why they do hair analysis, blood analysis, muscle testing, iridology, urine testing, to try to figure out what you need a little more of or a little less of. That's the way nutritional medicine has been practiced. But when you understand USANA, therefore we want the cell to have all of these antioxidants and supporting nutrients at their optimal levels. So when he went from infectious disease to nutritional medicine, he took that simple philosophy with him. Let's just nourish our own cells like we did the ones in the lab. Let's look at the worldwide medical literature, find the optimal levels, and let's put it together for you. That's what this is all about. So cellular nutrition is defined as providing all of these nutrients at optimal or advanced levels, not RDA, that have been shown to provide a health benefit in our medical literature. This is what the scientists are doing in USANA. They're making my life easier to do this, because the problem, as I said, is not a nutritional deficiency. The problem is oxidative stress, and that's what I've written about, and that's it. But I want to go back. When I was in medical school, I was taught that all you needed were RDAs. And that's why, if you really eat a healthy diet, you can get RDAs in your diet. And that's what I taught for 23 years. But when I went back and looked at the medical literature, in dealing with chronic degenerative disease, I saw that RDAs have nothing to do with chronic degenerative disease. They were developed in the late 30s and 40s as the minimal amount of nutrient needed to protect against acute deficiency diseases like pellagra, scurvy, or rickets. This is what we found. And so what I find is that we need to look, because the RDA, for example, of vitamin E is 30 IUs, international units. But you don't see a health benefit until you get over 100 IUs, and that health benefit seems to go all the way up over 400 international units. So just go out and eat 400 IUs of vitamin E. All you need to get in is 33 heads of spinach, or 27 pounds of butter, or 5 pounds of wheat germ. You know, Dr. Wentz lectured on that. He says he bought a 5-pound jar of wheat germ. It took him 2 years to get it down. But anyway, so this is why your body is your best defense against degenerative disease. And providing cellular nutrition, which provide the optimal, not RDA levels of nutrients in the cell, this gives you the best chance to fight off degenerative disease. Now, when I have my peers come up to me and say, Dr. Strand, how come, or Ray, you know, they don't call me doctor, they call me Ray, but say, why do you recommend supplements to your patients? And I say, well, have you ever recommended exercise? And they say, well, sure. And I say, well, why do you do that? Well, I think my patients who exercise have a health benefit over those who don't. And I say, well, what do you base that on? Well, I base that on the medical literature. Then I tell them, well, then when you recommend exercise, are you treating a disease then? I say, no. I could say the same thing about a healthy diet. But this is what I believe about supplementation. I believe, because I've read the medical literature, I realize the health benefits of taking high-quality, complete and balanced nutritional supplements, that my patients who do that have a health benefit over those who don't. Am I treating a disease? No. I'm trying to build up the body's natural defenses, because cellular nutrition is about health. It's not about disease, because we can optimize our natural defense systems. This is what's really critical when you take supplements. We're not being really fancy, but when you take everything, you're creating a synergistic effect, and this is the key that USANA has. With their essentials and with their health pack, what you're doing is you're getting all of these. Vitamin E is the best antioxidant within the cell membrane. Vitamin C is the best antioxidant within the plasma. Glutathione is that best intracellular antioxidant. But they all need to be cofactors and these antioxidant minerals to do their jobs. If you don't have enough of them around, they can't do their jobs. But here's the key. Vitamin C can replenish that vitamin E, so it can be used over and over and over again. Alpha-lipoic acid will regenerate both vitamin E and the intracellular glutathione. What happens is you get a synergistic effect, so it's 1 plus 1 isn't 2, it becomes 8, 10, 20. That's why I see the potency. That's the USANA difference. That's the key. Because remember, balance is a key. We must try to bring oxidative stress back under control. Now, my patients who are normal, good health and all that, they don't have that much oxidative stress. The essentials, you know, either Biomega or the active calcium is all they need. But my patients come into me that have lupus or rheumatoid arthritis or MS, they have much more. So this is what I want. We want to be complete, balanced, convenient, pharmaceutical grade, and that's what USANA offers you. This is the quality they give you in the USANA Essentials and Nutritionals. This is what is really important. So that's where we're going. For those, everybody wants to ask me questions after this. We're not going to have time. But at raystrand.com/Montreal, I'm giving everybody a 20% discount on any of my programs. If you want to be a certified team leader. And this, so if you want to go, this is my online medical practice where I give a lot of my specific recommendations. Many have been translated in French. I've also got some French books that are on sale back here. And right after the meeting, I'll try to sign books. I'm only going to have about 30 minutes, so I'm not going to be able to answer questions as far as that goes, but I'll try to sign as many books as I can. And thank you very much. Appreciate it.